The agenda, I'm going to talk a little bit about the company because I'm basically, again, this is intended for people that are new, although I know a lot of people on today's show are kind of have been here for a while, but it's intended for people that are new. I'm going to talk a little about the company. Then I'm going to talk about how to get around the site, make sure you're able to navigate from one place to the next. We're going to talk about how to create great charts. There's several different charting tools that StockCharts has. I'm going to introduce you to those, and I'm going to tell you which one you want to use when. Some of them are better than others for certain things. We'll go over that. We have another set of charts and another set of tools that allows you to compare stocks. So you can drill down into a single stock in a lot of detail, or you can compare stocks, this stock to that stock to a bunch of other stocks. So we're going to talk about those tools next. Then we're going to get on to saving charts. Once you have a chart up and running and it looks good on your screen, you're going to want to save it so you can pull it back later, and we'll talk about that. Towards the end, we're going to talk about bending stock charts to your will. There are many different areas of stock charts that you can customize. And by customizing it, you're going to make yourself much more efficient. You won't have to constantly be resetting up a chart. You'll be very quickly able to get the chart that you want to see on the screen really easily. So customizing stock charts is important. Talk a little bit, unfortunately, I can't get into too much detail, but we'll talk a little bit about how you can find great buying opportunities with StockCharts.com, some different areas you can go to if you got a little mad money and you're thinking about maybe buying a stock or an ETF and evaluating them. I'll show you where you can get some ideas for that from a technical perspective. And then we're going to wrap it up with more stuff about getting more help and FAQs, things that people are asking a lot. And then hopefully there'll be some time at the end for Q&A live Q&A from questions that you guys have. All right, so that's the agenda. Again, just quickly, StockCharts.com. Our purpose is to provide high quality financial charts for online investors like yourself. We started 20 years ago. We've been doing it ever since then. Our charts are featured in a wide variety of places. You guys know that because you're here. And in theory, you guys are already members or subscribers to our service. And I do want to take a second. Thank you very much for that. We always appreciate our members. You wouldn't believe how much we appreciate our members. So thank you for joining. We're going to continue to try and provide, like I said, high quality financial charts, but even better, more and greater charts. And in fact, I'm going to give you a little preview of a new kind of charting system we're going to have in just a little bit. Hopefully our tools and our education will help you make better investing decisions, ultimately through data visualization. You'll be able to see what's going on in the market better using our tools. So that's our goal, that's our purpose, that's our mission as a company. But now let's get into specifics. How do you get around the site? How do you log in? And what do you do once you log in? So I'm going to move over to my demo machine now and give you a quick demonstration of making sure you're clear on the basics of navigation. So over here on my demo machine now, I'm going to show you the logging in part. So when you subscribe to StockCharts.com, you'll go through the process of signing up. You should get an email with your password. If you don't get that email, please contact support. And you can do that at StockCharts.com/support. But you should get the email. The email will include your initial password, the password that we assign to you. And then you can use that password to log in for the first time. In fact, let's see if I can do this. I've got my mail. I did this earlier today. So let's go back up here and go to StockCharts support. Welcome message number 1 of 3, and it includes my password. So if you don't get a password, this is just a little demo account that I created. If you don't have that password or you don't get that email, then you need to contact us and we can get it to you. So logging in, should see a screen like this when you log in for the first time. You can type in your address. You can enter your password and you can click remember me if you want. So remember me will set some cookies in your browser so that you never have to type the password again. As long as you're using the same browser and as long as you don't delete those cookies, we will get you logged in every time you come to StockCharts. We recommend that for people that use StockCharts a lot, and if you're doing it on your own personal computer. Obviously, if you're doing it on a shared computer, you don't want to check the Remember Me checkbox. But now we're going to log in, and this is what we see. So once you log in, you're taken to what we call the dashboard, the StockCharts dashboard. You can always get to the dashboard by clicking on the green tab here. It says your dashboard. You can also, once you've logged in as a member, get to the dashboard by clicking on the logo, StockCharts.com. You'll no longer go to our homepage, our true homepage. Instead, you'll automatically, as a member, go to the dashboard. So there it is. Just quickly making sure that I'm covering everything correctly. The dashboard gives you two things. It gives you an overview of what's going on in the market right now, and you can customize that overview. We'll see that in a minute. And it also gives you a way to navigate to all the other tools on our site, especially the tools specifically for members. So there is an area of our site called Charts and Tools that's available for free people to see all the different tools on our site and access them. You can use that too as a member, but we think that the dashboard is going to be a better jumping off point for members to get to the various areas of our site. And so generally, you're going to want to start your journeys and find the tools here. So the main tools are available in this box over on the left. It's called Member Tools. And the important thing to understand is that this box is scrollable. So there are many, many tools on StockCharts.com. Not all of them are visible when you first see that box. But you can scroll down within that box to see all of the different tools that we have. And they're listed kind of in priority order in terms of how popular, how important, and how useful we think those tools are. So it's very important to go through. We'll be covering many of these tools during the rest of this show, but not all of them. And it's good to go through this list and be familiar with all the different things that we provide. In the middle of the dashboard is we call this a mini chart or the market overview chart. It's just going to quickly give you a sense of what's going on in the market, especially if the market's open. The important thing to understand is that you can click on any of these, as I'm doing here. You can click on any of these to switch over to see a different market. If you want to see what the Dow's doing, there you go. This is an intraday chart showing what the Dow did during Friday, and you can see a little bit of Thursday as well. You can click on NASDAQ to see that, so on and so forth. You can click on the tabs up top, or you can click on the link there. And you'll also be able to quickly see just how well the market's doing. Is it up? Is this a green day? And Friday was a green day. Everything was up. Or is it a mixed day? Or is it a down day where everything's red? You're going to be able to quickly see that here. There are two other things that you can do with the market overview. By clicking on any of these charts, you're going to go to what we call gallery view for that particular index. And I'm going to come back to gallery view in just a minute. But that just clicking on whichever index you're interested in, like the NASDAQ, and then clicking on the chart is a really great, fast way to get to gallery view. And I'll show you why that's important later. The other thing that you can do in the market overview is you can click on market summary. So market summary is a tabular view with charts of what's going with more detail about what's been going on in the market on this particular day. So we've got a longer duration chart available, and you can, just like you were doing on the dashboard, you can click on any of these things and get more detail. We'll come back to that in just a little bit. I just want to continue on with the dashboard. So this panel here is actually pretty powerful, and at a glance, it can give you a sense of what's going on. This panel over on the right is currently set to market movers. This is what it will be set to when you first create your account. The key thing to remember here is you can customize this. I'll show you a little more of that later, but the bottom line is these different items are all available for you to put into this panel. Top 10 or our scooters or the ticker cloud or the DP signals or predefined alerts. All of that's available to you. And then within, say, the top 10, you can also then customize it by saying, I want to see the top 10 Dow stocks, or I want to see the top 10 S&P 500 stocks, or I want to see the top 10 NASDAQ stocks, so on and so forth. And you can sort them either by their volume, by their up percentage, by their down percentage, so on and so forth. So the most active stock, the most active S&P 500 stock on Friday was GE. Yeah, there's lots of news on GE recently. You can see it had a big change, 9%, almost 10% up. We can quickly get that information. Now, what I was showing you was how you can customize the top 10 list. Again, there are some other lists that you can look at. Here's our technical ranking scooters. We'll talk about that in a minute. Ticker Cloud, which shows you which symbols are most popular on stock charts right now. That's available to you. The decision point signals. So Carl and Aaron Swinland's opinions on where the market's going and whether it's long-term bullish, long-term bearish, so on and so forth. Those are also available for you to put into these boxes. And finally, what I like is our predefined alerts. So the ability to see which ones, which technical signals have just recently been generated. But at this point, let's back up a little bit. I don't want to get too down into the weeds. The bottom line is this box can be customized to contain whatever it is that you like. Whenever you change it, it's then going to remember and show you the last thing that you were looking at. So you have the ability, if I'm not interested in Dow stocks, let's say that I'm someone who is only interested in looking at NASDAQ stocks. I can change this top 10 NASDAQ stocks, and I want to see the top 10% up NASDAQ stocks. So I've now made those changes. On Friday, it happened to be this particular stock. Notice as I mouse over it, I can see a quick chart. And now I want to see that every time I go to the dashboard. I'm going to just leave this here. It's automatically saved into my account, and I'm automatically going to see this again later. Really nice. We're going to talk about scans and alerts later, and we're also going to talk about chart lists later. But the bottom of this dashboard is your list of chart lists. And that list should grow. It's very important, we think, for you to use a lot of chart lists when you're saving your charts. I'll show you in just a minute how that list is going to grow. So the bottom of this page will become very important. Initially, it looks a little boring. We just have one list in here called default to start, but we're going to make that better in just a little bit. Okay, so that's all about the dashboard. The other really important thing I wanted to show you, and this is on all of our pages, is this charting bar that's up at the very top of all of our pages. Initially, it has a drop down, and that drop down is set to sharp charts. But notice there are a bunch of other charting tools that are available if you want, and you can select any of them. And then what you can do is you can type in a ticker symbol. And as you type in your symbol, we're going to do that autocomplete thing that you're probably very familiar with from Google and other places, where you start typing, and we'll see what we have in our catalog, and we'll show you what matches or the closest matches we can find. And then that should help you to find the ticker symbol if you don't know the ticker symbol of the thing that you want to chart. And then when you're ready to go, you can hit go. And that will bring up, in this case, that will bring up what we call the sharp chart for IBM. You can also just press enter. Okay, and what it's going to do typically when you type in a ticker symbol and press enter is it's typically going to show you your default sharp chart. That is a chart with the settings that you have previously configured. We're going to talk about changing defaults in just a minute, but it doesn't have to. The point is, again, you can drop this down and select some of our other tools and type it in. All of our tools are always going to be available here, pretty much on every single one of the pages of our website. Okay, Rachel, how am I doing?
You're doing pretty awesome today.
Any big questions yet?
Well, the most popular question in the chat room right now is, how do you save or store RRG charts in chart lists?
We will get to that. It's a great question. Clearly, somebody is not necessarily a brand new user, and that's fine. That's wonderful. I'm glad you're here. We'll get to that.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do now is get to the next slide that we have on our journey. Talk about creating great charts. So the tools are kind of broken up, in my mind, they're broken up into kind of three categories. There is the what I'll call the microscopes, the ability to look at a single individual stock in a bunch of great detail. So the idea there is that maybe you heard somebody mention, I don't know, GE in the news or some other stock in the news, and you want to go and take a good hard look at what its chart looks like, what its chart's been over time, so on and so forth, how its indicators stack up. That's what these kind of tools are going to be about. Later, again, we're going to talk about comparison tools, and then the third category would be screening tools, tools that let you get ideas for stocks to look at. But let's assume that you've already got an idea of a stock you want to look at, and that's what you need to do. Now, many people will do what I was showing earlier here. So back on the dashboard screen on my demo, people will show the ability, they'll just type in the ticker symbol they want, and they'll press enter. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a fine way to go. It'll take you right to our Sharp Charts workbench, which is our premier tool. But the Sharp Charts Workbench has a lot of stuff on it, and I'll get to that in a minute. I just wanted to mention to you guys, because we're here on a Saturday, and I want to give you a little tip, especially for people that are new to this and the people aren't super comfortable yet with technical analysis and what it provides. I want to suggest to you that gallery view might be a better way to go initially. I really like gallery view. I think it's like the #1 overlooked tool on our website. And let me show you how gallery view works and why I think it's really good, especially for people that are maybe a little intimidated by all the other options that our other tools provide. Gallery tool provides you with a predefined collection of tools, charts for whatever ticker symbol you type in. So in this case, I've typed in IBM. I could type in any ticker symbol I want. And because I'm logged in, I'm going to get an intraday view, a daily view, a weekly view, and what we call a point and figure view. And I think these 4 views give you a lot of great information about a stock, and especially the technical situation that the stock finds itself in. And I think it's important that people, especially new people, understand this view, understand what this view is telling you, kind of before you go nuts and add a zillion indicators and spend a lot of time with our other charts. So if you haven't checked it out, do that. Intraday view. What an intraday view is, in this case, is a 10-minute chart. That means that each bar on the chart represents 10 minutes. And we can see a couple of days. So this is Friday's activity here. And before that was Thursday's activity. There's Wednesday, so on and so forth. So what we can see is on Tuesday, between Tuesday and Wednesday, there was a big gap down for IBM. It moved lower on Wednesday. On Thursday, it kind of consolidated, kind of caught its breath, moved up a little bit right before the end with some volume. And on Friday, it gapped up. Didn't follow all the way through, moved sideways, but it did end up higher for the day. It ended up 1.39% higher on Friday than it was on Thursday. We can see other fundamental information here like PE and EPS and some other things. But the bottom line is we're seeing, we're getting a good sense in the short term of what the journey has been for IBM traders. I'll also point out that Friday's close was on fairly low volume. You can see the volume bars here, much higher on the previous days. So that's all good. But that's looking really, really closely. We also need to get the longer view context of what's going on. So just below this is the daily view for IBM, and we have, in addition to the bars, where now each bar represents a day, we have indicators above and below to give us a sense of a couple of things. But before we talk about the indicators, let's talk about just the price movement. We see generally IBM has been moving sideways for a long time. How do I know that? I know that because this red line here is almost flat. This red line is the 200-day moving average. So you take the past 200 days, you add them up, you divide by 200, and that's the value of that moving average for each day on this chart. It's actually really rare to see a 200-day moving average as flat as this is. And what this means, I think we'll see it on the next chart, is that IBM's been going sideways for quite some time. The blue line is the 50-day moving average. It has a little more motion to it because it hasn't been going completely flat. It has been going up and down a little bit, and we can see that in the chart, of course, and we see the blue line. Often the 200 and the 50-day moving average might provide some support for the stock. We can see the 200-day moving average has been important for helping the stock. It bounced here. It did break the 200-day moving average briefly, but moved higher here. And then it actually just bounced again on Thursday right off the 200-day moving average for IBM. It did so here as well. So the 200-day is always important to pay attention to, as is the 50. And so we provide that automatically for you on Gallery View. Now, the indicators above and below also give us a hint of what's going on. The top indicator is a very popular one called the PPO. It's very similar to an indicator that everyone knows or everyone encounters at some point called the MACD. Both of them are related to momentum. So don't worry about the letters and the names and all that stuff. Just think about momentum. What is momentum? Momentum is the velocity that a stock might have going up. If a stock moves up for a long period of time, then it gains a lot of momentum. And we can see here, IBM was moving up for a little bit of time in June and July. And during that time, it had a positive upward trend in its PPO line. In other words, its momentum was increasing. Unfortunately, it hit some resistance up here and the momentum turned around and moved lower as well. That's what's been going on recently. Over here, we see, or down below the chart, we see it's what's called the Chaikin money flow, which is an indicator that tries to determine how much volume has been flowing into the stock versus how much money and volume has been flowing out of the stock. And we can see there are periods of time where there was large inflows, and we can see there were periods of times where there were large outflows. And so that's nice to know. The Chaikin is again an approximation of that, but it's a very good indicator because it combines both the price movement and volume movement. So I like the Chaikin a lot. The final purple line that we see here is our scooter line. SCTR stands for StockCharts Technical Rank, and it is an indication of how strong many technical indicators are for this stock relative to all the other stocks that IBM is in the same category with. In other words, in this case, all the other stocks in the S&P 500. And so we can see for a while the scooter line was moving up, and then recently the scooter line has been moving back down again. We'll talk more about that too, but the bottom line is there's a lot of information in this chart. I think the most important piece of information I can derive from it, just looking at it, is the sideways 200-day moving average. So let's try and confirm that. The final chart that we have, the final normal chart we have in gallery view, is a weekly view. And so now each bar represents an entire week. So essentially all of the information on our daily chart, which went back to the beginning of April, is represented in just pretty much from here over on this weekly chart. But we can now see more. And this blue line here is the 40-week moving average, which is approximately the same as the 200-day moving average. Not exactly, but close. And so again, that line is generally moving sideways. It's got a little up and down to it in the past, but generally moving sideways. IBM's been doing that for a long period of time. We see a longer term momentum graph up top, and we see another graph here called the relative strength line for IBM. So this is IBM's price divided by the price of the S&P 500. And if that line's going up, it means IBM's doing better than the S&P 500. If it's going down, it means IBM is not doing as good as the S&P 500 on a relative strength basis. And in this case, I would say generally it's been trending lower. It's been certainly going sideways from time to time, but trending lower. And so that means IBM has been weak during this period of time. Now, the final thing I want to show you, and there's more detail on all of these technical kind of discussions I'm having. There's more detail on that in our chart school, which we'll mention later. But I just want to give you a sense of the breadth of information that you can discern from gallery view without having to type or make any settings. We're able to really do a deep dive in IBM's technical situation. This final chart is a P&F chart. On a P&F chart, when the stock is doing well and is in uptrend, on the P&F chart, there'll be a rising column of X's. When the stock stops doing well and turns around and starts to move lower, then there will be a new descending column of O's. And at some point, that will end and the stock will start moving up again. Then there'll be a new rising column of X's, a new descending column of O's, so on and so forth. So as the stock goes through an uptrend and a downtrend on a P&F chart, that's just represented by a single column. And it means that each column just represents a trend. And each column could take a different amount of time. Whereas on a regular chart, each bar represents the same amount of time. On a P&F chart, each column is probably a different amount of time. So a P&F chart only moves if it needs to. It only moves because the stock is volatile. But what's really nice about that, among other things, is we can look for specific patterns. It's very easy to determine with a computer if a particular pattern is happening. We can also very easily draw trend lines automatically on P&F charts. And so just very quickly, without getting into too many more details, the key thing to look for is what was the last pattern on this P&F chart? And in this case, it was a bearish pattern. There was a double bottom breakdown that happened. It happened right here. And the other thing is the chart in a P&F uptrend or is it in a P&F downtrend? At this point, IBM is still in a P&F uptrend because it was a long time ago at the start of 2019. It's moved much higher since then. And so this uptrend line is still in effect. It'll take a little bit of time And there'll be need to be a lot more technical weakness before IBM would reverse that uptrend line. So that's a positive, but overall, that's a negative. And I would say generally some of the things I saw here, it's not necessarily a negative. I would say it in terms of immediately get rid of it, but it's a hold. This isn't a super exciting stock that's breaking out to the upside or anything like that. All right, so and you can type in any symbol you want here. And I did IBM. You could type in Microsoft, whatever you want to, and then do your own analysis. My strong advice, though, is to spend a little time with Gallery View and try and understand what it's telling you at the different time frames with the different indicators that we've already provided for you. Okay, let's keep moving forward. What you can also do in Gallery View is you can simply click on the chart, and then it will take you automatically over to the SharpCharts workbench. This is SharpCharts, our premier tool with all of the capabilities. And again, you can just type a symbol up in the chart bar at the top, and you'll quickly get to the SharpCharts tool. So without getting into all the details, I want to show you that the SharpCharts workbench, this is the page, we call this the workbench page, has 4 main areas. At the top is a set of quick tools that settings that you change, such as the ticker symbol, the period, and the update button. The update button causes the chart to refresh. Below that will be the chart itself. We'll talk more about this in a minute. Below that is the action links, things like annotate, print, share, those kind of things. Well, and then below that are 3 gray panels, if you can see them. We have the chart attributes panel. These are settings that affect the chart as a whole. We have the overlays panel. Overlays are the lines that go on top of the price bars, like these moving average lines. And then at the bottom, we have the indicators panel. Indicators are lines that appear above or below the chart in their own separate panel. That's because they're typically on a different scale. Overlays are on the same scale as the prices. Indicators are typically on a different scale from the prices, maybe 0 to 100 in this case, so on and so forth. And so it's important to understand that those 4 areas exist. At the top, quick stuff. You can also use this area at the top to retrieve your saved charts. We'll see about saving in just a second. And then below that, the chart, below that, the action bars, and below that, chart attributes, overlays, and indicators. I'll show you one other quick thing, and we need to probably clean this up, but the overlays and indicators, by default, they have their advanced settings closed. Clicking on this little green triangle will open up those advanced settings, allow you to get a little more control over how things appear with things like colors and so on and so forth. All right, so ticker symbol goes here. You can select the period. As a member, you'll have the ability to get intraday periods. If you look at this and you see ads, or you look at this and you only see daily and weekly as choices, and it seems like everything's a lot less fun than it usually is, that probably means you're not logged in. This page will reconfigure itself. If you're logged in, it will look like I'm showing you here. If you're not logged in, you will see ads, and you will have a much fewer capabilities in order to and choices. And so you want to make sure you're logged in. If that happens, just look over here in the upper right corner and make sure that you're logged in like we are now. Okay, so I'm going to take just a couple more minutes to go over SharpCharts, and then we'll take a quick break. What I wanted to make sure that people were aware of was 2 other things. The refresh. When the market is open, you have the ability to set your chart so that it automatically refreshes and gives you the latest and greatest stuff. As an extra member, which is what most people start out as, you have the ability to have your refresh happen every 15 seconds automatically. If you want more than that, you can go to our Pro membership, and charts will refresh automatically every 5 seconds. Keep in mind, however, you can always manually refresh your chart as frequently as you want just by pressing the update button. If you want to really watch it on a very, very quick basis, maybe you're getting ready to place a trade, you can press the update button and see the change as soon as it happens. There's also the inspector. you have the ability to turn on the inspector by clicking this checkbox, and then you can mouse over and see the information on the chart. If you want to see what a particular bar's open, high, low, and close values were, the inspector is a really quick way to do that. Something that not many people know is you can also use the inspector to measure distances. If I want to see what the percent change is between here, between here and here, I can just drag up and I can now see over on the side the percent change is 11.74% between those two locations. I can also drag right to left, and now I'm counting the number of bars that happen, and I can see how many bars existed between one point on the chart and the next point on the chart. So the inspector gives you that ability to measure things as well as inspect and drill down into the individual ones. The stuff that in the chart attributes includes stuff like color scheme. And I really like some of the other color schemes that we have. I like a color scheme called Murphy. That was what was in our gallery view. There's also the ability to change the size of the chart. Many people are asking, how do I make my chart bigger? The size column will do it. By hitting update, you have a much, much bigger chart. There are a lot of other capabilities here, and I encourage you to experiment with them. Most of these you can't hurt yourself. Similarly with the overlays and the indicators, you can add a lot to these. We have 3 slots for both of those initially, but as you add more slots, say we add Bollinger Bands, a new slot appears. As members, you can add up to, I think it's 25 overlays and 25 indicators. So you can add a lot more just by filling in the slots that exist. Okay, so that's a quick overview of the ChartCharts workbench. We're going to take a commercial break here, and I'll be right back, and we'll talk about how you can annotate these charts.
The ChartWatchers newsletter features expert technical commentary about the current market from some of the industry's leading technical analysts. See what's really happening in the markets through their eyes and gain an edge in your own investing. The newsletter is packed full of insightful and educational articles intended to help you become a better investor. Whether you are brand new to charting or a seasoned technical analyst, each edition will provide a wealth of informative content. It's the best way to stay informed on all the latest news, events, updates, and additions here at StockCharts.com. Whether it's a new feature or blog, an upcoming conference, or a special sale, you'll hear it first in the ChartWatchers newsletter.
And welcome back. Hey, again, there is a lot to go over here. Hopefully I'm doing a good job, but I've given you a quick intro to the ChartCharts workbench. I could spend another hour on this entire workbench itself. Hopefully I've given you the impression or a good enough intro to it that you can experiment more with it and learn some of this on your own. We will be providing more details over time as well. And of course, we have lots of help on the site too. But before we leave the ChartCharts workbench, I wanted to show you one final thing, which is our annotation tool we call Chart Notes. So by clicking on that annotate link, just below the chart, there's a link called annotate. We now have full access to all the different tools that allow us to draw on our chart. By default, we have picked the trendline tool. Over here on the left, we see all the different tools that are available, and we have different ones. By clicking, I can see all the different tools that I have. I can create shapes, I can create lines, I can create line studies. But it starts with just a simple trendline tool. There's the width, there's the style, it's going to be solid, and I can now just click and drag to create my trend line. I can create as many trend lines as I want. I can add, again, any kind of annotation to it. Once I'm done, what I'll be doing is I can click the save icon right here, or I can click the close chart icon. Either one of these will work. And this will cause the chart with its annotations to be saved into my account. And so in this case, it's suggesting it's going to save it into my default chart list. That's the only one I have at this point. And it's giving it a name, which is just the name of the chart. I can change that if I want, or I can simply hit upload. So at this point now, whenever I look at the saved chart, those trend lines will be there, and those trend lines will move over time as the chart advances, as more data is added to the side of the chart. So that's, again, a quick intro to chart notes. I will also strongly encourage you to play around with that more. You can't really hurt yourself. There's a whole lot of different stuff hiding in there. I think you'll enjoy learning about it. We do have help for all of this stuff. I'll give you more details in just a minute, but the help icon up here can give you all the information you need for using our tools. We have online manuals, so on and so forth. All right, so that's chart notes. Next up, I did want to take a second to talk about our other new charting platform. So what I've been showing you so far has been what we call the ChartCharts charting platform. That's the combination of the ChartCharts workbench along with the chart notes annotation tool. We're in the process of releasing a completely different charting platform called StockCharts ACP. And you can get a preview edition of this. Any member can get a new preview edition of this by simply going back to the dashboard and clicking on the green StockCharts ACP button. StockCharts ACP is a true streaming platform. So whereas SharpCharts creates an image of a chart, which you can then use in blogs and pictures, any other place you can put a picture of a chart, SharpCharts ACP is an actual program that we run, that your browser runs on our behalf, and it gives you a very interactive experience. Where SharpCharts, you have to make some changes and then click the update button. In ACP, you just click and drag. You just click and drag to add stuff, move stuff around. I can take something even like the indicator values here, and I can change the indicator periods. The point is that it's a very interactive streaming experience. All of the stuff updates automatically. You don't have to wait for a particular period of time before you'll get the next update, so on and so forth. There's lots and lots and lots to go with ACP, dope, but it is still a work in progress, as we just saw. We are releasing new features and new capabilities to ACP literally every week, and we're looking for feedback on that from our users. I did want to also emphasize, though, that SharpCharts is not going away. If you like SharpCharts, if you've been using that for a while, it's not going anywhere. It'll still be there working exactly like it always has. If anything, it will only get better as ACP also gets better. So those are our two major charting platforms. Again, I encourage you to explore them as much as you can. And over time, becoming an expert in them is going to really help out. There's one more chart that I wanted to mention, one more chart type that I want to mention in this category of exploring individual stocks. And this is a chart, this is another chart type that not a lot of people spend time with, but I think they should. It's called a seasonality chart. And you can find it here in this drop down under seasonality. You can also find it here. Whoops. You can find it here in the members tool. Seasonality is right here. You click on it and you type in a ticker symbol, whichever ticker symbol you want. We'll go with Microsoft, Amazon, whatever. See, what seasonality chart, what this chart is showing us is the months in which this particular stock historically has done well. So in the case of Microsoft, over the past 5 years, in the month of June, which really seems to be a standout month here, only 20% of the time, and in other words, only once in the past 5 years, has Microsoft's price increased during the month of June. Most of the time it has decreased, and we can see the average there. I think it's 0.5% decrease during the month of June for some reason. This is an interactive chart, meaning that I can click and drag with it and do stuff to it. The slider down at the bottom allows me to change the period. So instead of looking at 5 years, let's look at the past 20 years. In the case of Microsoft, for the past 20 years, June suddenly starts looking a little better. We still see that October has historically been the best month for Microsoft. February, historically not the best month. Similar, you can imagine, similar things for retailers. You would probably see with Amazon, Walmart, any of those kind of stocks, you'd probably see, the Christmas effect and the Cyber Monday effect and the Black Monday effect, Black Friday effect. All that different stuff is what this seasonality tool can show you, and it's really, really powerful. You can also enter a second ticker symbol, which will commonly be like the S&P 500 or something like that, $SPX. And then it's going to show you how that stock did relative, not just to zero, which is what we're looking at, but relative to the, in this case, the S&P 500. So only 20% of the time in June has Microsoft outperformed the S&P 500 over the past 5 years. so on and so forth. So that's the seasonality tool. Just wanted to point it out, another little gem that a lot of people don't see. All right, let's get back to our agenda, our outline of stuff. As I mentioned, we've been looking at individual stocks. I now want to look at comparing stocks, but let me take half a second. Rachel, what did I forget?
Let's see here. Individual stocks?
Yeah.
So actually, we do have a question from the chat room that is a quite common one. What's the blue dash line on the IBM chart?
Excellent question. Let's go look at it. So you're going to see that line on a intraday chart. Notice this is a daily chart, and we do not have that line. But if I take this down to be a 1 minute chart and I hit update and I expand things out just a little bit, actually it's probably better to do it with a 5 minute chart. It'll be a little more obvious there. This is the dash blue line I believe they're referring to right here. And what this shows you is the closing value for yesterday's closing value. So you can see at a glance whether today we're above or below yesterday's closing value. And again, it'll appear on intraday charts. It won't appear on daily, weekly, monthly charts. All right, let's press forward. I'm already running out of time. Lots and lots to cover. On the multiple chart front, we have perf charts, candle glance charts, and one of my favorites, RRG charts. So let's talk about that for just a second. All of these, again, can be found on the members dashboard in the members tool area. We're going to start with perf charts. Perf charts is our interactive way of comparing several different ticker symbols all together. If you have a collection of stocks, you want to see which stock outperformed another stock, perf charts is the way to go. We're similar to seasonality. You have a slider down at the bottom. Just by clicking on either edge of the slider, you can change one end or the other end. And by clicking in the middle, you can change you can move through time. And so for instance, I can also right click on the slider and say something like year to date, very common thing. So year to date, NASDAQ has outperformed all the other major averages. It's up 19%. Year to date, the other ones are 10%, somewhere in there. That's a really nice thing to quickly be able to see, and perf charts allows that. You can type, I believe, up to 12 symbols here. You can also select from predefined groups. Let's say we want to look at the S&P sector ETFs. There we go. This is not only showing you their performance, it's showing you their performance in what we call histogram mode. So we can do a little bit of a sector rotation analysis. I will do a different show on that. We can look at market capitalization. So we can see that in the past 200 days, large caps have outperformed mid caps, which in turn have outperformed small caps. They're actually down for the past 200. So the perf chart tool, very, very powerful and really useful tool for exploring relationships between different stocks. Another tool that we have, another one I quickly want to show you, is our candle glance tool. Candle glance is like mini charts. There are a bunch of little mini charts that you can pull up, either from charts you've saved or from predefined groups that we've already created for you. And so here's an example of a predefined group. This, again, is just our market summary. We have the Dow, the S&P, the NASDAQ, and so on and so forth. And so we can very quickly see over the past 2 months, what did the bar charts of each of these kind of look like? We can also pick other things like, again, the S&P sector ETFs. So each of the sectors. What I like to do with the candle glance view is immediately my eye goes to the blue and the red lines. And the blue and the red lines represent moving averages. Again, I believe it's a 20 and a 50 moving average on this particular example. And I just want to see, is it going up or is it going down? And is the red line above the blue line or vice versa? So for instance, in this case, we see the red line is going up, but the blue line has started to come down. That's a shorter moving average. So it means in the short term, we're seeing weakness, but in the long term, we're still seeing strength as the longer red line is still moving up. They're about to cross, or in fact, they did just cross. That can be considered a bearish sign. Same thing happened with XLY. We can see all of these, or a lot of these sectors are in a similar kind of situation. They've either crossed recently or they're about to cross. Do any of these look, the question really is, do any of these look different, or any of these in a different kind of scenario than some of the other ones? Which of these things does not look like the others? It's kind of the game you're playing with candle glance. this case, I would say right now, most of them do look very similar. Maybe this, maybe the real estate one might be considered slightly different. Anyway, candle glance, another great way to compare large groups of stocks. The final thing that I wanted to show you from a perspective of comparing stocks is our RRG tool, because it's unlike anything else. RRG stands for Relative Rotation Graphs. It was designed and created by one of our commentators, Julius Kempenaar, and it gives you a sense of the movement of a stock over time, a stock or an index over time. Over time, stocks and indexes, let's see, let me fit this. Stocks and indexes will move between an improving quadrant, the leading quadrant, meaning they're doing well in both directions, the weakening quadrant, and the lagging quadrant. And so RRG is designed to kind of show this behavior. If I do this, let's do max and then animate. Here we go. What we're looking at here again are just the major market averages, and you can see how over time they have moved around. I'm gonna expand this out. Instead of 1 year, we're going to go for 5 years, and we are going to go with a group. Again, I really like to look at the sector ETFs. So there we are. I'm going to now hit max, and I'm going to hit animate. And so we can see over time these different sectors and their sector ETFs moving around. We went 1 year, back to 1 year. Let's go back to 5 years and update. And again, do the max and do the animate. We can see them moving around. And in this case, we see XLE is really an outlier at this point. But we also see this general rotational capability as we compare their relative strength to each other along with their momentum to each other. So stocks that are in ETFs that are in the leading quadrant have great relative strength and great momentum. Stocks that are lagging have weak relative strength and weak momentum. And you can see that over time, everything kind of rotates around the center in one way or another. Julius has a great set of blog articles that he does. He does a show. He's a guest very frequently on StockCharts TV. You can learn a lot more about RRG from his blog from our help areas. But this is just a fascinating tool. If you want to manually move stuff around, I'm just clicking and dragging here on the SPY graph. And so I can quickly compare things. And then the tails, people ask about that. The tails just are giving you a history of where that dot has moved over time. You can take the tails down to 1 if you want, and then you can just watch the dots move around. Or you can take the tails really far out, and now you've got a big bird's nest of color on your screen. It's up to you. Somewhere in there generally helps and gives you a sense of how things are going. Okay, so those are RRGs. They show stocks spinning through their typical investment cycle. Very, very fascinating. All right. Yes.
Chip, we've got some really good questions in the chat room right now. Do you have a moment?
I do.
Okay. So as you said before, the gallery view charts are really underutilized. And
yes,
I want people to know how powerful they are. So a lot of people want to know if they can customize their gallery view charts. And I also thought maybe you'd like to show them how to view 2 charts side by side in gallery view.
Okay. I do. The answer is you can customize it. And it is true. Yes, you can show 2 charts in gallery view, which is really nice. What I'm going to do, though, for this particular show is I'm going to talk a little about how to customize things later. We don't have a ton more time. And I'm going to come back to that down the road. But you do bring up a good point. In gallery view, there's a new feature we added probably about a year ago where you can type 2 ticker symbols separated by a comma, IBM and, I don't know, GE. And now you have multi-view, so we can compare IBM's gallery view, which is on the left, to GE's gallery view, which is on the right. So that's kind of nice. In order to customize gallery view, you can customize what's in there, and you can also customize what's in Candle Glance. You're going to use something called chart styles, and I want to talk about chart styles next. But I do want to also warn people, spend some time with the standard settings. Make sure you fully understand that before you go crazy on all the customizations. The standard settings were chosen because they give a really good overview of what's going on. Okay, so bending stock charts to your will in the last 5 minutes is what we're going to try to do. So I want to talk about customizing how you can make stock charts become more your own. The most important thing to understand about customizing is the concept of a chart list. A chart list is a folder of charts that you have saved. And basic members only get one folder. They can store up to 500 charts. They don't have a whole lot of options for categorizing and saving their charts in different folders. That's the whole value of the extra and pro levels, but especially the extra level, is you get up to 200 different chart lists that you can use. So those are 200 different folders that you can create to organize and categorize your stock. So maybe one folder would be your portfolio, your existing portfolio. Another folder might be your retirement portfolio. Another folder might be your watch list. Another folder might be stocks that you've owned in the past and then you sold, so on and so forth. There are many, many, many different ways that you can use these chart lists to store information, and how you decide to do that is kind of up to you. But the way that you add a new list, the way that you work with a list is, again, here from the members dashboard. You can click on this button, Chart List, or you can just simply scroll down. At the bottom is a list of your chart list. Initially, you'll have one. You can add more. To add a new one, you click on the green and you give it a name, like My Portfolio, which I strongly recommend people do. And then once you do this, we now have a folder, but the folder is empty. And so we're looking in edit view, we're looking at the folder, and we're seeing there's nothing in there. Well, let's add some stuff in there. And since it's my portfolio, I've got a whole bunch of stuff I want to add. I'm making these up, but you would get a list of the things that you actually have in your portfolio. And you would then hit Add Charts. And boom, I now have 4 charts that are now a part of that portfolio, or part of that chart list. And I can look at them in different ways. Now that I have a list that's been populated, I can look at them in 10 per page view. 10 per page is the easiest way to look at a large collection of charts. It'll show me each one of the charts that I've saved, and I can scroll down 10 at a time and then go to the next page, so on and so forth. Now, because I simply typed in these stocks as ticker symbols without actually constructing a chart and saving it manually, they've given me these charts using their default styles. This is the final most important thing that I want to tell you, is the default style that StockCharts comes with is this. It looks a little boring, I'll admit. It's kind of white with some candles. Most people want something different. In order to change the default style, this is the first and most important thing you should probably do when you get a new StockCharts account, is change the default style. Go in and find the kind of chart that you are looking at most frequently. So for instance, in my case, I'm going to be looking at a Murphy chart with the Murphy color scheme. I want the size to be, let's go with 1024. I'm going to want not to use those indicators. I'm going to want to use different indicators. Instead of MACD, I'm going to use, let's say I want to use the Chaikin money flow, which I mentioned earlier. So there that is. Let's say that I don't want to have the RSI on, so I'm going to set that up to none. That will delete the RSI from my account, or from this chart, I should say. And let's say I want to add one more overlay in addition to those 2 moving averages. I also want to add my Ichimoku cloud chart, because I really like those, very visual. So there we go. So let's say just that this is the kind of chart that I really want to look at. Like whenever I type in a ticker symbol, these are the settings that I really want to see initially. Most of the time I want to see a chart like this. So the way I do that is I'm going to save this as my default chart style. So here in the chart styles line, there's save as default is a link. I'm going to click that. Are you sure you want to make this the default chart style? I'm going to hit OK. And now it is saved in my account as my default, meaning that whenever I go to anywhere else on the site and I type a ticker symbol, whatever it is, doesn't matter, I now see those settings. I see a chart with those settings. And so that's going to save me a ton of time. I don't have to click to reset this chart up every single time. It will be available to me just by typing a ticker symbol. Really, really nice. It also means that when I create a new chart list and I add stocks to it, then I'll automatically get that. So let me delete this portfolio list that I just created. I'm going to come here. I went to my dashboard. I'm sorry, let me back up. I went to my dashboard. I went down. There's my portfolio list. I clicked on it. Now I can see it in what we call summary view. But let's say I want to recreate it. I'm going to hit delete. I'm going to hit OK. So that list is now gone. I'm going to go back to my dashboard. I'm going to scroll to the bottom. I'm going to hit add new list. I'm going to make a new portfolio list. This will be the last thing I'm going to show you guys today. Create the new list. Go to many, type in my ticker symbols. Whatever they happen to be. Again, I'm just making some up here. Hit add charts. And now when I look at this new list that I just created in 10 per page, all my charts have those default settings that I set up before. So setting up your defaults is super important. You can then create chart lists very quickly and easily with all of those settings. Well, I have run out of time. It's shocking, I know. There is still other things that I wanted to cover, didn't quite get to, but you can find them in the PDF file that we mentioned at the top of the show. Again, you can always watch this. We'll be re-showing this show again in just a little bit, and then we'll be re-showing this show throughout the week. I'm going to do the show again pretty much every weekend going forward for newcomers, and I hope to see you the next time we do this show. Keep those questions coming to customer support. We'll get them answered. Thanks. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.
I want to show you a little charting trick that I like to use for the percentage price oscillator, or the PPO. On this SPY chart here, you can see in the indicator windows, I've got two PPOs. The first is the traditional PPO. It's the black line there, and that's the difference between the 12-day EMA and the 26-day EMA. And you can see it's above zero when the 12-day EMA is above the 26-day EMA, and below zero when the 12-day EMA moves below. The red line is the signal line, and it's set at 9. So it's a 9-day EMA of the PPO, and you can identify downturns and upturns in the PPO with that EMA. And the histogram is the difference between the PPO and its 9-day EMA there. You can see when the PPO is below its 9-day EMA, the histogram is negative, and then when the PPO is above its 9-day EMA, the histogram is positive. Now, the little trick I want to show you has to do with the PPO 50, 200, 0. That's the second indicator there. And what I've done is I've eliminated the signal line by putting 0 as that last parameter. So this PPO shows the percentage difference between the 50-day EMA and the 200-day EMA. And you can see that it shows as a histogram when using these parameters, and it has been positive for over 6 months, actually for over a year, actually for over 2 years in this chart. And we can see that it's currently around 3.1% difference. That means the 50-day EMA is 3.1% above the 200-day EMA. And we can confirm that by going to the annotate button there and choosing percentage change. And if you measure the percentage change from that 200-day EMA, the red line, and I go up to the 50-day EMA, there you can see we're about 3.1% difference. And so that's what the PPO is telling you. And so I like to use that longer term PPO to get an idea of the long-term trend.